Okay.
And of course, that's common sense.
All right, you're right, Isaac. To a certain extent, much of this is common sense. We all know from time to time when we have crossed the line with someone, when we've done something that was inappropriate. But so much of sexual harassment is not really black and white. There's so many shades of gray. And so often, we just don't know when we're stepping into those shades of gray. We don't know when our behaviors, our habits, are adversely affecting the people that we work with, especially with this new media we have, the internet, cell phones. We really don't know sometimes when we're crossing over that line from being appropriate to inappropriate. Here's a good example. Let's take Jack and Jill, for example. Jack and Jill, they're store clerks. They've worked together for years. They're good friends. Well, one day, Jack decides to bring in his brand new cell phone to the workplace. He starts showing his cell phone to the guys in the stock room. Everyone's huddled around this phone looking at these pictures, talking about the twins. Jill, overhearing all of this, says, "Oh, I want to see the pictures," and runs up to Jack. Jack doesn't really want to show her the pictures. He hesitates. Jill says, "I really want to see these pictures. Show them to me. I love kids. Come on." Jack eventually shows her the pictures, and Jill is outraged because these aren't pictures of cute and cuddly children like she expected. These are pictures of naked women on his cell phone. You see, during Jack's off time, he likes to download porn onto his cell phone, which has high-resolution photos. So how many of you think that what Jack has done, that Jack's conduct, bringing his cell phone, showing these pictures of naked women, how many of you think that that was sexual harassment?
Of course, Jack is a total pervert.
Yeah, if Jill weren't so nosy, asking to look at Jack's phone, then she wouldn't have seen the pictures, then she wouldn't have been offended, so.
Jack didn't intend to offend her. Is that also your point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not like he touched her, grabbed her or something like that, I could see how that would be, harassment, but he didn't intend to, offend her by showing the phone. He wasn't showing her.
All right, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But how many of you would need some more information before you could make that decision that, yes, this was sexual harassment?
I would want to know how often this kind of thing happens. So does Jack come to work every day with photos of naked women, or was this just a one-time incident?
Okay, now why is that important to you? Why would you want to know if this happens only once or if it happens over a course of time?
If it happened once, I don't think it would be serious enough to be considered harassment. But if every time Jill walked in the room and she saw Jack showing his phone to everybody, well, then that's a different story.
Okay. Those are all really good points that you're making. Amy, to your point regarding the kind of environment that Jill is working in, the kind of conduct that she's subjected to every time she walks into the workplace, and her feeling that Jack is a perv, you're kind of getting to that first type of sexual harassment in the workplace. There are two types. There's a hostile work environment, and then there's quid pro quo. We'll get to quid pro quo a little bit later. But what you're describing potentially could create a hostile work environment for Jill. Now, before we can say that we have a hostile work environment, we have a few tests that we have to meet first, a few criteria. The first is that the conduct has to be unwelcome. I think we can all agree that Jill was uncomfortable by looking at these pictures. She didn't welcome looking at these pictures. Okay? Second, the conduct has to be severe or pervasive. Now, severity is very difficult to gauge for you, but often severity is being touched, being grabbed. It only has to happen once in order for it to be considered harassing conduct. Bringing in a cell phone once with naked pictures on the phone, I'm not exactly sure if that would get us to that severity level because, like to your point, Sharon and Aaron, didn't realize that your names rhymed. To your point, if Jack's supervisor were to pull him aside and reprimand him for bringing in that cell phone, and Jack never brought his cell phone in ever again, the situation's resolved. Jill is no longer working in a space in where she has to see these pictures. However, if every day she walks into work, Jack has a whole new set of pictures for her and his colleagues and everybody else who has to see the phone, then we have a situation in where the conduct is happening so frequently, it's happening so repeatedly that we're now walking into that pervasive territory.
Come on, Jack flipped his phone open. He was looking at his phone. It's not like he walked up and was like, showed it, to her. She asked to look at it.
Okay, so once again, Isaac's making a really good counterpoint. He's saying, look, it's Jill who asked to see the phone. It's not like Jack went up to her and said, oh, here, I'm going to sexually harass you. I'm intending to harass you by showing you my phone. She asked for it. Does that make a difference to anyone?
No, she still has to see him and his buddies gawking at women and laughing at the phone, and it's got to make her feel gross going to work, and it's humiliating.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Intentional, not intentional, Jack still crossed the line.
All right. You see, Isaac, sexual harassment and other forms of harassment in the workplace based on a protected class, whether it's your race, gender, national origin, disability, religion, those are protected classes. And whether or not you intend to harass someone based on those protected classes really makes no difference, because in this situation, even though Jack may not have intended to offend Jill, he still did by having these pictures and polluting her work environment. You see, every time Jill walks into her workplace now and she sees Jack on his phone, like Amy said, looking through this phone with his colleagues, and they're laughing and they're gawking, it creates an environment that could make her feel uncomfortable. It creates an environment where she's humiliated walking into the workplace. When you start telling jokes that degrade someone based on their gender, when you start making jokes based on someone's religion, when you start using racial slurs, religious slurs, to offend someone in the workplace, whether it's intentional or not really makes no difference. Because once again, you're engaging in conduct that does degrade someone based on their protected class. Even though Jack may not have meant to hurt Jill, he potentially could. Now, we have a few other criteria that we have to meet before we have a hostile work environment. But I think the best way to go into that would be to step into our next scenario. Cursing in the workplace. Is it harassment when your boss yells at you and curses at you and uses profanity in the workplace? Is that harassment?